Hi everyone, over the past few days we've seen major international meetings taking place between Putin and Trump in Alaska, and yesterday we also have seen the big meeting at the White House between Trump and Zelensky and the European leaders. Now, of course, over the last couple of days we've been talking about security guarantees in Ukraine in the push for peace, or so they're claiming. Of course, we can look back to the time of Pete Hegseth, who said back in February, the Defense Secretary for the US, who said it was about division of labour. And the US will probably be pivoting now towards China and looking for the European Union to pick up the slack, unsurprisingly, after Trump has got his tariff deals through in Europe. And of course, all that energy is coming across from the United States as well. So the European Union have been completely beholden to the United States, and of course, Trump has been calling for an increased so-called defence spend and military-industrial complex spending up to 5% of GDP of many European countries, and specifically this has major ramifications for Ireland. After the announcement yesterday and discussions yesterday, they said it was going to be $100 billion of US weapons will be financed by, wait for it, Europe. Surprise, surprise, again on the hook for what's going on in the proxy war in Ukraine. And there will be a $50 billion drone deal between the United States and Ukraine as well. But specifically how it relates to Ireland is Micheal Martin. Now, Micheal Martin has been taking part in the coalition of the Willing meetings. Are you aware of this? This is a big revelation. There should be really alerted for anybody in Irish society who's interested in Irish neutrality and the erosion of our basic neutrality and the drive towards more war in the European Union. Now, of course, Ireland in a constitution states that we should seek pacific settlements to international disputes and stand up for peace. Of course, as a former colonised country by the British Empire for centuries, and as well, we're being colonised now by the European Union in terms of our policies. And of course, Martin said sovereignty was a backward-looking idea. But he has spoken in the last few hours about his latest meeting with the so-called coalition of the Willing. This is led by NATO members, and Martin should have no place in putting Ireland into any of these meetings. I call it a coalition of the killing. Ireland should be standing for the coalition of the unwilling. And this has connotations back to the Iraq War, back over 2 decades ago, where the so-called weapons of mass destruction, we all remember that coalition of the willing. And he said today there was reasons for optimism following the discussions in Washington over the last few days and what's happened in Alaska. So we'll wait and see how that develops over the next period of time. And he's wanted to thank Trump and Zelensky and for pushing the diplomatic means. Of course, it went to the security guarantees, and this is the important part. He said that Ireland stands ready to play our part. Now, isn't this interesting? This comes at the same time he's trying to erode the triple lock, which basically means that no more than 12 members of the Irish Defence Forces can be sent on overseas missions without approval from the UN Security Council. Of course, the General Assembly as well has a role to play in that, and it will come from the government and the Oireachtas, the Dáil approval before more than 12 members of the Defence Forces can be deployed overseas. But of course, he wants to erode this. Considering Martin a number of years ago said this was a key part of Irish neutrality, but of course now he's changed his complete narrative because it suits the European Union and those warmongers like von der Leyen, who's trying to work towards a rearming Europe plan, the $800 billion plan. And as well, we've seen Ireland spend a fortune on the non-lethal military aid which has been sent across, and he said he will continue to send non-lethal military aid. Ireland has sent lethal force to Ukraine. We have to correct what Martin is talking about. And of course they've worked about the transit of weapons through Shannon, for instance, as well, on the way to Ukraine and the way to Israel, what's happening as well, because the Shannon airport has been used as a military airbase for years by the United States. Of course, they won't talk about that, but that's what's really happening. It's beholden to the multinationals in Ireland, and they keep their head down because Shannon's been used as their military airbase, sending weapons on the way to kill and maim people in the inhumane barbarity of war. And as well, the transit of soldiers through various countries as well, through Ireland, and not to mention the training of soldiers through these battle groups that Ireland is heavily involved in. And we see that Martin has also said that Ireland stands with Ukraine, and he said they stand up for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity. Isn't that interesting? Stands up for Ukraine's territorial integrity, but won't stand up for Ireland's territorial integrity or sovereignty. It's a backward looking idea, according to Martin. And notwithstanding the mass immigration chaos through the Ukrainian war and the proxy war as well. So it's just farcical what's happening in our society. People need to be aware of what's taking place. It's outrageous. We should have no hand actor part in any militarist union. We should have no hand actor part in this coalition of the killing. We should be standing up for neutrality, should be standing up for peace, standing up for the interests of the people of Ireland, and not get involved in these international conflicts towards imperial powers. We should be standing up, as I said, as a colonised country. We know better than most in terms of the violence and barbarity of war and being oppressed by many countries, and now is the time to stand up for peace and stand up for Irish neutrality and talk about what neutrality really means, active neutrality, in terms of protecting our borders. We can't even protect our borders, but this is what's taking place in our society. The RAF patrolling our airspace, a depleted military, defence forces being underpaid and undervalued. We see the Navy being decimated, and this is what's happening under the watch of successive governments. But now they're willing to send more money towards Ukraine, of course, who are on the hook for all these massive multi-billion-dollar deals for the military-industrial complex. And we can all hark the money back to companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, who call the shots internationally with the globalists. So thanks so much for supporting my videos, really appreciate them. Please subscribe to my channel as well. And thanks for sharing my videos far and wide. So from Dublin, this evening, Slán go fóill. Take care.